a roadside motel on the Arizona border, where dust devils dance across empty parking lots, armed shadows emerge from black SUVs. The Sinaloa Cartel's elite sicarios move with practiced precision, weapons ready for a simple elimination. Fatal miscalculation. In room 217, a retired Green Beret snaps awake, combat instincts surging through veins where war never truly left. 20 years of classified operations across global killing fields have hardwired responses that need no conscious thought. As door hinges splinter under cartel boots, they're not finding prey. They're entering the hunting ground of America's most lethal predator, who turns cheap motel rooms into perfect ambush zones. The first gunman makes it. But before we jump back into the video, let us know where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe, because I have something really special for you tomorrow. And now, back to the video. The first gunman makes it 3 steps into the darkened room before a whisper of movement becomes his last sensation. The silenced shot that follows isn't for him. Michael Vega has already moved, knife returning to sheath, as the second cartel soldier collapses backward with a precision hole where his eye had been. Not combat, not chaos, just work. Through paper-thin walls, a child's muffled cry pierces the night. Michael freezes, calculations shifting. Civilians, collateral risk. The rules of engagement just changed. The third sicario steps over his fallen comrade, swinging his weapon toward the bathroom door. He dies, never understanding why Michael wasn't where he should have been. The blade enters below his ear, severs the spinal cord, and exits before the man's brain registers pain. Michael lowers the body silently to the carpet, already counting footsteps on the exterior walkway. 4 more, maybe 5. Blood pools across the faded carpet, black in the darkness. Michael moves to the window, staying to the side, peering through, a sliver in the curtains. 3 SUVs, professional deployment, military-grade weapons. Overkill for a simple hit. This isn't random. This is personal. A radio crackles. Jesus Ruiz, report. Tense, impatient. Spanish with a northern Mexican accent. Michael checks his watch. 40 seconds since first breach. They expect it to be done by now. He retrieves his go-bag from under the bed, muscle memory guiding hands through darkness to find his Sig Sauer and 2 spare magazines. The weight feels like homecoming. Old friend. The phone is next. 1 message. Sent. No words. Just a predetermined emergency code to an unlisted number. Someone who still owes him. Someone who will understand exactly what the message means. In room 219, the young woman clutches her 6-year-old daughter, palms pressed against the child's ears, eyes squeezed shut as if blindness might provide sanctuary. Stay quiet, baby, she whispers, terror strangling her voice. Please stay quiet. They weren't supposed to be here either. Wrong place, wrong time. A broken-down car and a desperate need for shelter had led them to the Desert Palm Motel. Now Maria Delgado realizes they've stumbled into something deadly, something that has her instinctively shielding her daughter's small body with her own. Outside, the squadron leader signals to his remaining men. Their operation is already behind schedule, and radio silence from the first team means trouble. The mission profile specified a single target, a retired American soldier who was supposed to be sleeping, supposed to be an easy kill. The cartel had paid for reliable intelligence. Someone had been wrong. Sweep and clear, he orders. No survivors. 2 men circle toward the back of the motel. 2 approach the stairs. The leader stays with the vehicles, already preparing his explanation. For El Patron, failure is not an option they can afford. Inside room 217, Michael Vega calculates odds, angles, possibilities. 20 years in special forces taught him to transform disadvantages into weapons. Poor lighting becomes concealment. Cheap furniture becomes cover. The element of surprise has been neutralized, but he still has home field advantage. This is his territory now. He hears the mother's whispered prayers through the wall, her daughter's muffled sobs. A complication. Our responsibility. For 7 years, Michael Vega has been running from ghosts. From what he did in service to his country. From the man he became in the shadows of war. For 7 years, he's been neither soldier nor civilian, existing in the grey space between worlds. But tonight, as boots climb the metal staircase toward his room, as automatic weapons catch moonlight in deadly silhouettes, something awakens inside him. Purpose. Clarity. The certainty that has eluded him since he left the battlefield. These men came to execute him. Instead, they've resurrected something they cannot possibly understand. The warrior who specialized in impossible odds, who turned hopeless situations into victories written in classified files and redacted mission reports. As the footsteps reach his door, Michael Vega smiles for the first time in years. They should have sent more men. 3 days earlier, Michael Vega's battered Ford pickup rolled into Sagebrush, Arizona, population 8,602, another anonymous pit stop on America's forgotten highways. At 52, his face had weathered into a topography of experience. Deep lines around green eyes that missed nothing. Salt and pepper stubble framing a mouth that rarely smiled. His body remained efficient, economical in movement, a machine maintained despite decades of punishment. The Desert Palm Motel sign flickered against the twilight sky, half its neon burned out years ago. Just like most dreams in this town, Michael paid cash for a week, requested room 217 specifically. Corner room, second floor, unobstructed view of the parking lot, stairwell access, thin walls, old habits. The night clerk barely looked up from her dog-eared paperback, just slid him a key attached to a plastic diamond that had yellowed with age. "Passing through?" she asked with rehearsed disinterest. Something like that. Michael Vega had been passing through for 7 years now, ever since he'd turned in his credentials at Fort Bragg and walked away from Special Forces. 7 years of drifting, taking odd security jobs, occasional consultation work, and spending too many nights staring at motel ceilings, chasing sleep that remained elusive. Retirement from war didn't mean peace. It just meant fighting different battles. The motel room smelled of industrial cleaner barely masking decades of cigarettes. He placed his duffel on the bed, methodically unpacking his sparse belongings with military precision. A photograph, creased and faded, found its place on the nightstand. A younger Michael, arm around a beautiful woman with laughing eyes. Elena. Dead 8 years now. Cancer. The enemy he couldn't fight. Another glamorous destination. He murmured to her image with a ghost of a smile. The real reason for his presence in Sagebrush remained locked in a secure email on his encrypted phone. A message from Cooper, one of the few contacts he maintained from his former life. Suspicious cartel movements near the border. Rumors of a high-value transfer. Nothing concrete, just Cooper's instincts, which had saved their team more times than Michael could count during 3 tours in Afghanistan. "Just check it out," Cooper had said. "You're the closest. Probably nothing." But probably nothing had sent better men than him home in boxes. Michael settled into his routine. Weapon check, sightline assessment, exit planning. From his window, he watched a young woman struggle with luggage while a small girl in a pink dress orbited around her like a satellite, chattering excitedly. They took room 219, 2 doors down. The woman looked exhausted, shoulders bent under invisible weight. The child's energy seemed to both sustain and drain her. He turned away from the window, unwilling to dwell on the strangers. Attachment was luxury. Observation was necessity. Sleep came in fragments that night, as it always did. Dreams of sandstorms and gunfire. Elena's face fading into darkness. The sound of helicopter blades transforming into ceiling fans. He woke before dawn, as he had for 30 years, body clock immune to civilian schedules. The diner across from the motel served coffee strong enough to strip paint. Michael claimed a corner booth with clear sight lines to all entrances. The waitress, Doris, according to her name tag, had the efficient movements of someone who'd been pouring coffee longer than some wars had lasted. "You military?" she asked, filling his cup without waiting for an answer. Michael looked up, momentarily surprised at being read so easily. "Once upon a time. My late husband was Army. 27 years. She nodded toward his hands. "It's how you hold the menu. Like you're expecting it to attack you." He allowed himself a small smile. "Occupational hazard. What brings you to our little paradise?" "Just passing through." "Honey, nobody passes through Sagebrush. You either escape it or get stuck here." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the woman and child he'd seen the previous evening. The little girl wore the same pink dress, slightly more rumpled. Now, the mother looked like she hadn't slept. Dark circles prominent under her eyes. They took a booth near the window, the child immediately grabbing crayons from a plastic cup, the mother scanning the room with the nervous energy of prey. "Maria and Sophia," Doris said, following his gaze. "Car broke down 2 days ago, waiting on parts from Phoenix." She studied him with shrewd eyes. "Not that you were asking." Michael nodded, returning to his coffee, but his peripheral awareness remained fixed on the pair. The mother's posture, her vigilance, the way she positioned herself between her daughter and the door. It spoke of someone running from something or someone. He knew the signs. He'd seen them in villages across Afghanistan, in refugee camps, in safe houses where witnesses waited for transport. Fear left the same fingerprints across all cultures, all situations. After breakfast, Michael drove the perimeter of Sagebrush, mapping entry points, police presence, security cameras. The town existed primarily to service travelers on the highway and locals from surrounding ranches. One main street, a handful of businesses, 3 bars, a small sheriff's station with 2 patrol cars. Typical border town infrastructure, unremarkable, except for its proximity to Mexico, just 18 miles south, the perfect place for a cartel transfer point. Insignificant enough to avoid scrutiny, close enough to the border for quick escape, remote enough that strangers would be noticed but not necessarily questioned. By noon, he'd established his cover story with strategic conversations at the gas and station and hardware store. Michael Vega, retired Army, on his way to his sister's place in New Mexico. Transmission trouble delaying his journey. Simple, believable, forgettable. Back at the motel, he set up observation points, placed motion sensors, disguised as everyday objects, and prepared contingencies. The weight of his Sig Sauer against his lower back was comforting, a constant in a life that had long ago surrendered to impermanence. His phone buzzed with a message from Cooper. Intel confirms, something big, moving through Saturday night. Key players inbound. Watch only. Do not engage. Backup unavailable. Michael frowned. Saturday was tomorrow. Whatever was happening was accelerating. Cooper's warning was clear. He was on his own. Not unusual in their line of work, but the timing felt wrong. Too rushed. Too many unknowns. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Instinctively, his hand moved to his weapon as he approached, silently, from the side. Through the peephole, he saw the little girl, Sophia, shifting nervously from foot to foot, looking back toward her room. Michael opened the door just enough to see her properly, keeping his body positioned to react if necessary. "Hi," she said, voice small but determined. "My mommy's crying and I don't know what to do." Michael hesitated, caught between ingrained caution and basic human response. "Where is your mom now?" "In our room. She thinks I'm in the bathroom." Sophia twisted the hem of her pink dress. "She cries when she thinks I can't hear." He glanced toward room 219, conflicted. "Is she sick? Do you need me to call someone?" Sophia shook her head. "She's scared of the bad men. They found us again." The words sent a chill of recognition through him. The vigilance, the fear, the constant looking over her shoulder. "What bad men, Sophia?" he asked, voice gentled to the tone he'd used with children in Afghan villages. "The ones who hurt my daddy. The ones with the snake tattoos." Her small face, hardened with a determination no child should need to possess. "I heard them last night at the gas station. They were asking about us. Snake tattoos. Cartel." Michael's mind raced through implications, calculating new variables. If the cartel was hunting this woman and child, his entire operational assumption needed revision. This wasn't just about a transfer point. There were now potential civilian casualties in the matrix. "Sophia!" The panicked call came from room 219, followed by the sound of a door yanking open. "Sophia, where are you?" The girl turned. "I'm here, Mommy. I was just talking to the neighbor." Maria rushed over, grabbing her daughter's hand, eyes wild with fear until they settled on Michael. Her posture shifted instantly from frightened mother to cornered animal, pulling Sophia behind her, hand moving toward her purse. Toward a weapon, Michael assessed instantly. "It's okay," he said, raising his hands slightly, showing empty palms in the universal signal of peace. "Your daughter just knocked on my door." Maria's eyes narrowed, assessing him with the same careful calculation he'd been using on her. "I'm sorry if she bothered you," she said finally, accent slight but noticeable. "We'll leave you alone." "Mommy, he might help," Sophia insisted. "He looks like the soldiers who helped Daddy before." Maria flinched visibly. "Sophia, enough. We need to go back to our room." Michael made a decision that contradicted every self-preservation instinct he'd cultivated. "If you're in trouble, I might be able to help." "You have no idea what kind of trouble," Maria replied, backing away, pulling Sophia with her. "Snake tattoos. Cartel. Running." Michael kept his voice low, steady. "I might understand more than you think." Maria froze, shock and fear battling across her features. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows what it's like to be hunted." A long moment passed as Maria studied him, weighing impossible options. Finally, her shoulders sagged slightly. "They murdered my husband 2 months ago." In front of Sophia, her voice was flat, emotionless. The voice of someone who had gone beyond fear into something harder, colder. "We've been running ever since. Witness protection was Supposed to meet us in Phoenix tomorrow, but she stopped, glancing around the empty walkway. But I think we were compromised. Michael nodded once. Come inside, both of you. 20 minutes later, Maria's story unfolded between sips of coffee from the room's cheap machine. Her husband, Daniel Delgado, had been an accountant for what he believed was a legitimate import business in Nogales. 6 months ago, he discovered evidence of the company's real purpose, laundering money for the Sinaloa Cartel, specifically for Javier Quintero, the cartel's rising lieutenant responsible for the Arizona corridor. Daniel wanted to do the right thing, Maria said, watching Sofia draw on hotel stationery at the small table by the window. He gathered evidence, contacted the DEA. He was supposed to testify against Quintero next month. But they found him first, Michael guessed. Maria nodded, eyes hollow with remembered horror. They came to our home, 4 men. They wanted to know what evidence he had, who he'd spoken to. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They tortured him, for hours. Sofia and I were locked in the bathroom, but we heard everything. Michael kept his face impassive, though rage burned cold and familiar in his chest. How did you escape? Daniel had prepared. There was a hidden panel in the bathroom, a bag with cash, new IDs, a gun. When they finally... She glanced at Sofia. When it got quiet, we escaped through the bathroom window. We've been moving ever since, different motels, different towns. The US Marshals have been trying to secure us safe passage to a protected location, but there was a delay. Something about jurisdiction and paperwork, bureaucracy, Michael said, the word bitter on his tongue. He knew too well how often lives were lost to paperwork and protocols. My contact was supposed to meet us in Phoenix tomorrow. New identities, new location. Maria ran a hand through her hair, exhaustion evident in every movement. But last night at the gas station, I saw them. 2 men with snake tattoos, showing a picture to the attendant. Our picture. And your car conveniently broke down, Michael concluded, keeping you trapped here. The mechanic said parts won't arrive until Monday. Tears of frustration glimmered in her eyes. I tried calling my marshal contact, but the number's disconnected. Something's wrong. Michael considered the timing, the location, Cooper's intel about a major cartel movement tomorrow night. The piece aligned with disturbing clarity. Quintero is coming here, he said. Tomorrow night. That's why they're searching for you now. They want to eliminate any threat to his security before he arrives. Maria paled. How do you know this? Let's just say I still have connections. Michael checked his watch, mind racing through scenarios, each more dangerous than the last. We need to move you. Tonight. To where? The nearest border patrol station is 30 miles away. We have no car, no phone that can't be tracked. I have a car, Michael said, and contacts who can help if we can reach them. Maria studied him, desperation warring with distrust. Why would you risk yourself for us? You don't even know us. Michael's eyes drifted to the photograph of Eleanor on the nightstand. Let's just say I've seen enough innocent people caught in crossfire. Sofia approached, drawing in hand. I drew us escaping from the bad men, she said, with the matter-of-fact acceptance that only children can manage in impossible situations. The crayon illustration showed 3 stick figures holding hands, running from dark shapes with angry faces. Michael noted she'd drawn him as part of their escape. Something shifted in his chest, a weight he'd carried for years, simultaneously growing heavier and more purposeful. We'll leave after dark, he decided. Pack only what you absolutely need. I'll create a diversion at the south end of town to draw attention away from the highway north. As Maria nodded and rose to return to their room and prepare, Michael's phone vibrated. A message from Cooper. Urgent. Intel compromised. Quintero bringing full security detail. Possible high-level informant involved. Abort, abort, abort. Michael stared at the screen, pieces clicking into place with terrible certainty. The broken-down car, the disconnected marshal contact, the cartel's precise tracking of Maria and Sofia. Someone had sold them out. Someone with access, authority, and knowledge of witness protection protocols. And now that same someone knew Michael was here, watching. The hunter had become the hunted. Night fell over sagebrush, with the sudden totality of desert darkness. Michael watched from his window as the last light bled from the sky, leaving only the harsh glow of the motel's exterior lights and the distant shimmer of headlights on the highway. He'd spent the afternoon preparing, cleaning his weapons, plotting escape routes, making calculations that balanced risk against survival. Maria and Sofia had returned to their room with strict instructions. Pack 1 small bag each. Rest if possible. Be ready to move at midnight. The plan was simple but effective. Create a diversion at the gas station south of town. Remotely triggered fire alarms and a small controlled electrical short would draw attention and resources. Meanwhile, they would take Michael's truck north on old service roads that paralleled the highway, but remained largely invisible to casual observation. 60 miles north, an old army buddy ran a hunting lodge where they could regroup, contact trusted authorities, and secure proper protection for Maria and Sophia. Simple, efficient, adaptable, until everything changed. The text from Cooper came at 8:42 p.m. Compromised. Burn location. Assets inbound. ETA unknown. Michael's blood turned to ice. In their language, developed over decades of covert operations, the message was unambiguous. Their communication had been intercepted. Hostile forces were en route to his position. Timeline uncertain. Protocols dictated immediate evacuation without electronic communication. He moved to the window, scanning the parking lot with newfound urgency. Nothing seemed changed. The same scattered cars, the same flickering neon, the same night clerk visible through the office window, absorbed in her television program. Yet something had shifted. The air felt charged, as if the molecules themselves sensed the approaching violence. Or perhaps it was simply his instincts, honed through countless missions, recognizing the familiar pressure before an ambush. Michael grabbed his go-bag and moved silently to the adjoining room where Maria and Sophia waited. One soft knock. There, a ranged signal. Maria opened the door immediately, face tense but composed. Sophia stood behind her, clutching a worn teddy bear, eyes too old for her young face. "We need to move." "Now," Michael said quietly. "What's happened?" Maria asked, already reaching for their packed bags. "Our timeline's been compromised." Michael checked his watch. "New plan. We leave separately. Less conspicuous." Maria's eyes widened. "Separately?" "No. We stay together. One man and a woman. With child together, draw attention. We need to be invisible." Michael handed her a key. "There's a silver Honda in the far corner of the lot. Arizona plates. Go out the back stairwell, walk normally to the car. Drive exactly 2 miles north. There's an abandoned gas station on the right. I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. Whose car is it?" "Previous tenant. Checked out this afternoon." Michael didn't mention that he'd hot-wired it while the owner ate a dinner, or that he'd replaced the plates with ones he'd removed from a similar vehicle in the supermarket parking lot. 2 towns over. Some details were better left unshared with civilians. Maria hesitated, fear and distrust battling across her features. "Mommy, we should listen to him," Sophia said, her small voice steady. "He knows how to fight the bad men." Something in the child's simple faith seemed to strengthen Maria's resolve. She nodded once, took the key, and grabbed their bags. 30 minutes, she confirmed. "If I'm not there in 45, keep driving north. There's an envelope in the glove compartment. Address, contact information, emergency cash." Michael crouched to Sophia's level. "Your job is to stay very quiet and do exactly what your mom says." "Can you do that?" Sophia nodded solemnly. "Are you going to stop the bad men?" Michael met her gaze directly, refusing to offer childish platitudes. "I'm going to try." As they slipped out the back door into the desert night, Michael returned to his room to execute the final phase of his preparation. The diversion would now serve a different purpose, not to cover their escape, but to reveal their hunters. He worked quickly, methodically, years of training allowing his hands to move on autopilot while his mind calculated contingencies. The bathroom light rigged to stay on with the door closed. The shower curtain arranged to cast a human-shaped shadow. A simple timer connected to the television, set to increase volume in 20 minutes. Small tricks, but effective in creating the illusion of occupied rooms. Outside, he placed 3 nearly invisible tripwires at strategic locations. Not to injure, but to alert. Monofilament fishing lines stretched across access points, connected to small bells tucked into concealed locations. Old school, untraceable, reliable. Finally, he positioned himself on the roof of the laundry room, a shadowed observation point with clear sightlines to both the motel and the highway approach. Now came the hardest part. Waiting. At 9:17 p.m., headlights appeared on the southern approach, moving slowly. Too slowly for typical highway traffic. Michael raised his night vision binoculars. 3 vehicles. Black SUVs with tinted windows. No government plates. But the formation was tactical. Lead vehicles lightly ahead, sweeping for threats. Middle vehicle likely containing principals. Rear vehicle in protective posture. Cartel. Too soon. Too organized. The pieces clicked into sickening alignment in Michael's mind. This wasn't just about Marianne Sophia anymore. The informant hadn't just compromised witness protection. They'd sold Michael out directly. These men knew exactly where to find him. which meant they also knew about Maria and Sophia. Michael's blood turned to ice. The Honda with its conspicuous Arizona plates now represented a deadly trap. He'd sent them directly into the hunter's path. Grabbing his secure phone, he broke protocol to send one final message to Cooper. Revoke trust. All channels compromised. Civilians endangered. Then he smashed the phone, removed the battery and SIM card, and scattered the pieces in different directions. The SUVs pulled into the motel parking lot with practiced precision, position suggesting they'd studied the layout in advance. Warms. Men emerged, moving with the coordinated efficiency of military training. 2 positioned themselves as perimeter security. 2 moved toward the office. 4 headed directly for the stairs leading to room 217, Michael's room. For the briefest moment, Michael considered his options. Escape was still possible. The cartel team was focused on the motel rooms. He could slip away undetected, contact Cooper through emergency channels, bring in a proper tactical team. But Maria and Sophia would be dead long before help arrived. The moment of choice collapsed into certainty. He couldn't run. Not this time. Not again. In the 8 years since Eleanor's death, Michael had been adrift. A weapon without purpose. A soldier without a war worth fighting. He'd done his duty, served his country, saved lives, and taken them with equal precision. But somewhere, along the way, he'd lost the thread of meaning that made sense of it all. Looking at the armed men moving toward the innocent woman and child he'd sworn to protect, Michael felt something crystallize within him. Purpose. Clear and sharp as a blade. He would not fail these innocents as he had failed Elena, watching helplessly as cancer consumed her, while all his training, all his skills proved useless against an enemy he couldn't fight. These enemies he could fight. Decision made, Michael moved silently across the roof, positioning himself above the stairwell where 4 cartel sicarios now ascended, weapons drawn. He would have seconds to act, to create enough chaos to reach Maria and Sophia, before the cartel realized they'd left. The first sicario reached the landing, gesturing for the others to hold position while he checked the walkway. Professional, experienced, dangerous. Michael dropped from the roof behind the last man in formation, the sound of his landing masked by the rumble of a passing truck on the highway. One fluid motion, arm around the throat, knife between ribs, directly into the heart. No sound but a soft exhale as Michael lowered the body silently to the ground. 3 remaining. The second man turned, sensing something wrong. His eyes widened in the instant before Michael's knife found his throat, severing his ability to call out. Another body, carefully lowered to prevent noise. 2 remaining. The third man had reached room 219, testing the handle while his companion moved toward 217. Finding it unlocked, he pushed the door open, weapon leading. Michael couldn't allow him to discover the room empty. In 3 silent strides, he crossed the distance, driving his knife into the base of the man's skull as he entered the doorway. The body crumpled forward into the room. 1 remaining. The 4th sicario turned at the sound of his companion falling, and weapon raising. Too far for a silent approach, Michael drew his silenced Sig Sauer, firing twice. The first round took the man in the chest. The second, as he fell backward, struck him in the forehead. 4 down. 4 remaining, plus the driver. The shots, though silenced, were still audible in the quiet desert night. The perimeter guards would have heard. They would be moving, alerting the others. Michael quickly entered room 217, retrieving his go bag and extra ammunition. Through the window, he saw their remaining sicarios moving with tactical precision toward the stairwell. Having identified the threat location, time was running out. He exited through his pre-planned route, bathroom window to the narrow maintenance walkway behind the building. As he moved quietly along the back of the motel, gunfire erupted from the front. The cartel team had reached the stairwell, discovered their fallen companions. The night exploded into chaos. Shouting in Spanish, more gunfire, the screech of tires as guests fled the sudden violence. Michael used the confusion to make his way to the parking lot, staying in shadows, moving from cover to cover. The third SUV remained at the lot entrance, driver alert and watchful, engine running. A tactical problem with a direct solution. Michael approached from the blind spot, moving low and fast. The driver never saw him coming. 1 moment of violence, and Michael was behind the wheel of a cartel vehicle, driving normally toward the highway. In his rearview mirror, the motel became a receding island of chaos. Emergency lights now visible in the distance. As local law enforcement responded to reports of gunfire, he drove exactly 1 mile north before turning off his headlights and pulling onto a service road, heart pounding with urgency. The rendezvous point was still a mile ahead, But Maria and Sophia would have heard the gunfire, would be terrified, might have already fled. The abandoned gas station appeared ahead, illuminated only by moonlight. The silver Honda was parked behind. The crumbling building, hidden from the road, empty. Michael approached cautiously, weapon ready. The car doors stood open, no signs of struggle. But on the dusty ground, small footprints, Sophia's, led away from the vehicle toward the dilapidated store. "Maria," he called softly. "Sophia." A small sound came from inside the darkened building. A child's whimper. Michael entered slowly, senses hyper-alert. "It's Michael. You're safe now." A flashlight beam suddenly illuminated the space, momentarily blinding him. When his vision cleared, the scene before him stopped his heart. Maria stood against the far wall. Sophia clutched against her, a gun pressed to the child's head. But Maria wasn't holding the weapon. The man behind them was tall, lean, dressed in an immaculate suit that seemed outlandishly formal in the abandoned store. His snake tattoo curled from beneath his collar, winding up his neck to coil behind his ear. "Michael Vega," the man said, voice cultured, accent refined. "Special Forces, retired. They said you were good." A cold smile. "Apparently not good enough. Javier. Quintero. The cartel lieutenant himself." "Let them go," Michael said, weapon steady despite the ice in his veins. "This isn't about them. On the contrary." Quintero pressed the gun harder against Sophia's temple, causing the child to whimper. "The woman has evidence that could dismantle my entire northern operation. The child is a witness." His smile widened. "And you, Mr. Vega, have become an unexpected complication." "How did you find them?" Michael asked, mind racing through scenarios, searching for options that wouldn't end with Sophia's blood on the floor. "The same way I found you. The same way I know about your friend Cooper and his little operation." Quintero's eyes gleamed with triumph. "I own people you trust, Mr. Vega. People much higher up the food chain than you could imagine." The betrayal ran deeper than Michael had feared. Not just a compromised contact, but high-level infiltration. "What do you want?" Michael asked, playing for time, mapping distances, angles, calculating the milliseconds between decision and action. "Originally, to eliminate witnesses and proceed with tomorrow's business." Quintero shrugged elegantly. "Now, toes end a message about what happens to those who interfere with Sinaloa business." Maria's eyes met Michael's over Sophia's head. In them, he saw not just fear, but resolution, the fierce determination of a mother who would do anything to save her child. "I have a counteroffer," Michael said, lowering his weapon slightly. "Let the woman and child go. Take me instead." Quintero laughed. "And why would I do that?" "Because I can give you something more valuable." Michael's mind raced ahead of his words, formulating a strategy from desperation. "The names of every undercover DEA agent in your territory, Cooper's entire network." A flicker of interest passed across Quintero's face. "You expect me to believe you have access to that level of intelligence? Check my credentials. Check who I worked for after Special Forces." Michael was building a fiction from fragments of truth, a skill honed through years of covert operations. "Why do you think I'm here? This isn't retirement. It's deep cover." Doubt crept into Quintero's expression. Exactly what Michael needed. Just enough hesitation, enough distraction to create an opening. It came in the form of Sophia, who suddenly went limp in her mother's arms, a perfect feint of a feint. As Maria instinctively moved to catch her, as Quintero's attention wavered for a split second, Michael fired. The gunshot echoed through the abandoned gas station. Michael had aimed not at Quintero, but at the ancient fluorescent light fixture hanging above them. The building plunged into darkness as glass and debris rained down. In the confusion, Michael charged forward, counting steps exactly as he'd mapped them. 3 strides to reach Sophia. His left hand grabbed her small arm, pulling her down and away, while his right hand struck upward, deflecting Quintero's weapon. A second shot fired, the muzzle flash briefly illuminating Quintero's surprised face. The bullet splintered rotted wood, somewhere behind them. Michael's momentum carried him into Quintero, both men crashing into shelving units that collapsed under their combined weight. In the darkness, Michael could hear Maria scrambling to reach Sophia, the child's frightened breathing. "Run!" he shouted to them. "The SUV outside, keys in the ignition." Quintero was stronger than he looked, twisting in Michael's grip, landing a vicious blow to his kidney. Pain exploded through Michael's side, but he maintained his hold, wrestling for control of the gun. They rolled across broken glass and decades of dust, each seeking advantage. Michael's training gave him an edge in close-quarters combat, but Quintero fought with the desperate viciousness of a man unaccustomed to physical challenge. The Gun discharged again, the bullet passing so close to Michael's head that he felt its heat. He slammed Quintero's wrist against the concrete floor once, twice, until fingers reflexively opened, releasing the weapon. Michael reached for it, but Quintero drove a knee into his stomach, temporarily paralyzing his diaphragm. As Michael fought for breath, Quintero scrambled away, heading for the door where the sounds of an engine starting indicated. Maria had reached the SUV. Rolling to his feet, Michael pursued, retrieving the dropped gun in one fluid motion. Outside, the SUV's headlights cut through darkness as Maria threw it into reverse. Quintero had nearly reached the vehicle, hand outstretched toward the passenger door. Michael fired twice. The first shot missed. The second caught Quintero in the shoulder, spinning him around. He staggered but didn't fall. The SUV accelerated backward, Maria's terrified face visible through the windshield. In the back seat, Sofia pressed against the window, eyes wide with fear. Quintero reached inside his jacket with his good arm. Michael charged forward, but too late. The flashbang grenade arced through the air, detonating near the SUV's front tire. The explosion wasn't meant to kill, just disorient. It succeeded. The SUV swerved wildly, scraping against an ancient gas pump, before regaining control and disappearing into the darkness. Michael had a split-second choice: pursue Quintero or ensure. Maria and Sofia escaped safely. No choice at all, really. He ran for the Honda, keys still dangling in the ignition. As he started the engine, he saw Quintero staggering toward the highway, phone pressed to his ear, blood darkening his expensive suit, calling reinforcements, ordering pursuit. Michael spun the Honda around, accelerating in the direction the SUV had taken. Not the highway, but a service road running parallel. A good choice by Maria. Less visible, less traffic, harder to intercept. His headlights revealed tire tracks in the sandy soil, confirmation he was on their trail. Pain throbbed in his side where Quintero had struck him, but adrenaline kept it manageable. More concerning was the warm wetness seeping through his shirt, a wound he hadn't noticed receiving in the chaos of the fight. The service road stretched endlessly ahead, moon-silvered desert on both sides, no sign of the SUV's taillights. Had Maria turned off somewhere? Doubled back? After 5 minutes of driving, Michael spotted something ahead, a dark shape beside the road. As he approached, his headlights revealed the cartel SUV, driver's door open, vehicle empty. He pulled alongside, weapon ready, scanning for threats. Blood dotted the driver's seat. Maria had been injured, either by the flashbang or flying glass. The footprints told the story. 2 sets leading away from the vehicle. One large, one small. The smaller prints occasionally disappeared, suggesting Sofia was being carried. They were making for the hills to the east, using darkness and terrain for concealment. Smart, but dangerous. Their desert night was unforgiving. Without water, without proper clothing, they wouldn't survive until morning, and Quintero's men would be coming. Professionals with thermal imaging, tracking dogs, and intimate knowledge of the terrain. Michael moved quickly, retrieving his go-bag from the Honda, transferring essential supplies to a smaller pack. Water, first aid supplies, ammunition, a thermal blanket. The rest he could leave behind. He hesitated, then placed a tracker inside the SUV. When Quintero's men found the vehicle, they would assume Maria and Sofia had continued on foot. They would focus their search on the surrounding area. By then, Michael intended to be miles away, with Maria and Sofia safely in tow. Following their tracks was easy at first, but Maria had been clever, using harder ground where possible to minimize signs of passage. The blood drops became his primary tracker, small, dark splashes on rock and sand. After 20 minutes of steady movement, he caught sight of them, 2 figures silhouetted momentarily against the night sky as they crested a ridge. He increased his pace, closing distance while remaining alert for ambush. They sensed him before they saw him. Maria pushed Sofia behind a boulder, then emerged with a large rock clutched in her hand, a desperate weapon for a desperate moment. "It's Michael," he called softly, raising empty hands. "Are you hurt?" Recognition dawned in her eyes, followed immediately by suspicion. "How do I know it's really you? How do I know you didn't lead them to us? Sophia's teddy bear is missing its right ear. You've been shot in your left arm. And we have about 15 minutes before this entire area is swarming with cartel gunmen." He lowered his hands slowly. "We need to move. Now." Maria's shoulders sagged, the rock falling from her fingers. "I don't know who to trust anymore. Right now, you don't have much choice." Michael approached carefully, examining her wound. The bullet had grazed her upper arm. Painful, bleeding freely, but not life-threatening. "Let me bandage that. Then we need to go." Sofia emerged from behind the boulder, face streaked with dust and tears. She looked at Michael with that disconcerting, adult gaze that children develop in trauma's crucible. "Did you kill the bad man?" she asked simply. "No," Michael answered, wrapping a pressure bandage around Maria's arm. "But I slowed him down. He's going to keep coming, isn't he?" Maria winced as Michael tightened the bandage. "Yes. No point in comfortable lies. But we're going to disappear before that happens." Michael pulled a satellite phone from his pack. Not the compromised one he'd destroyed earlier, but a backup, with a different encryption protocol. Old habits of redundancy sometimes paid off. "I'm calling in a favor," he explained, dialing a number from memory. "Someone who isn't in any government database." The call connected after 3 rings. "Stryker. Aviation, how can I help you?" The voice was female, professional, neutral. "Authorization code, Delta 79er Echo Whiskey," Michael said. "Extraction requested for 3 packages. High priority." A pause. Then the voice changed, becoming clipped. "Military. Vega? Jesus, man. We thought you were dead." "Not yet, Hawk, but working on it." "Extraction parameters?" Michael gave coordinates for a small plateau 2 miles northeast of their position. 90 minutes, full blackout, hostile forces in pursuit. Acknowledged. Weather conditions favorable. Bring strobes for final approach. Copy. Vega out. He ended the call, returning the phone to his pack. "We have a ride. 2 miles that way," he pointed. "We need to move fast." Maria stared at him with new assessment in her eyes. "Who are you, really?" "Someone who made a lot of enemies and a few good friends." Michael helped Sophia adjust her small backpack. "Right now, that's all that matters." They moved through the desert night at a pace Sophia could maintain, Michael carrying her when necessary. The terrain grew increasingly rugged as they approached the extraction point, a natural plateau that would serve as an improvised landing zone. Behind them, lights appeared on the highway, vehicles moving slowly, methodically, the search pattern of hunters confident in their eventual success. "They're tracking us," Maria observed, voice tight with fear and pain. "They're tracking the SUV," Michael corrected. "By the time they realize it's a decoy, we'll be gone." "And where exactly are we going?" Maria asked. "Somewhere safe." The standard answer, though Michael knew safety was relative, temporary, often illusory. "A place Quintero can't reach," Sophia stumbled, exhaustion finally overcoming her remarkable endurance. Michael lifted her onto his shoulders without breaking stride. The child's small hands gripped his hair tightly, but she made no sound of complaint. "How much farther?" Maria asked, pressing her bandaged arm against her side. "Half mile. We're almost there." The adrenaline that had carried them this far was fading, revealing the true extent of their fatigue and injuries. Michael's side throbbed. Where Quintero had struck him, and the unnoticed wound from the gas station confrontation had soaked his shirt with blood. Maria walked with the determined focus of someone pushing beyond normal human limits. Her face had taken on the grey pallor of blood loss and exhaustion. "When we reach the plateau," Michael explained, "I need you both to stay absolutely still and silent. No matter what happens, no matter what you see or hear, stay down until I tell you it's safe." "What's coming for us?" Maria asked. "Help," Michael said simply. Some details were better left unexplained to civilians. They reached the plateau with 15 minutes to spare. Michael helped Sophia down from his shoulders, directing both her and Maria to lay flat behind a cluster of boulders on the plateau's edge. "No matter what happens, stay here until I come for you," he instructed. "If I don't come," he handed Maria the satellite phone. "Speed dial 1. Tell them Vegas sent you." Michael moved to the plateau's center, setting up 4 infrared strobes in a diamond pattern, visible only to pilots wearing proper night vision equipment. Then he took position at the plateau's southern edge, where approaching vehicles would become visible. The desert had fallen silent, even the night creatures sensing the wrongness in their territory. In the distance, the searching vehicles had stopped moving, concentrating around the abandoned SUV. Soon they would realize the deception. Soon they would widen their search. Michael checked his watch. 5 minutes until extraction. He scanned the night sky, looking for the telltale absence of stars that would indicate an approaching aircraft. A sound reached him, the distinctive crack of a high-powered rifle, followed by the impact of a bullet on stone inches from his position. He dropped instantly, rolling to cover. "Sniper!" he shouted to Maria. "Stay down!" A second shot struck closer. The shooter was walking in his fire, adjusting with professional precision. The third shot would find its mark. Michael calculated the shooter's position based on sound and bullet trajectory. A ridgeline approximately 800 yards south, too far for effective return fire with his handgun. but he had to try. He fired 3 shots toward the estimated position, not hoping to hit, but to force the sniper to adjust, to buy precious seconds. A new sound cut through the night, the throaty rumble of approaching engines. Cartel reinforcements, moving faster now, having discovered the empty SUV. The extraction window was closing rapidly. Where was Hawk? The rendezvous time had arrived, yet no aircraft approached. Another sniper round struck the rock beside him, showering him with stone fragments. The shooter had compensated, was dialing in with deadly accuracy. Michael made a desperate decision. Reaching into his pack, he retrieved his last flashbang grenade. Not meant for offensive use, but necessity drove innovation. He pulled the pin, counted 2 seconds, then hurled it high and far toward the sniper's position. The explosion wouldn't reach the shooter, but the flash might temporarily blind someone using night vision equipment. The grenade detonated, a brilliant flash illuminating the landscape for a split second. In that moment, Michael caught sight of something that turned his blood cold. Not one vehicle approaching, but a convoy. 6 SUVs, moving at high speed toward the plateau. Quintero had called in everything he had, and still no sign of extraction. "Michael!" Maria's urgent whisper reached him. "Something's coming!" He turned, following her pointing finger to the east. At first, he saw nothing. Then, a darker patch against the dark sky moving fast and low. No lights, no engine sound audible, yet Hawk, flying completely dark. Relief flooded through him, immediately replaced by new urgency. The approaching convoy would reach the plateau within minutes. The sniper, temporarily disoriented by the flashbang, would recover quickly. The aircraft, a modified Bell 407 helicopter with stealth adaptations, appeared suddenly over the plateau's edge, hovering 15 feet above the ground. No landing, no lights, just a rope ladder dropping from the open door. "Go!" Michael shouted to Maria and Sophia, pointing toward the helicopter. Maria grabbed Sophia's hand, running in a crouch toward the waiting aircraft. The sniper fired again, the shot going wide as he adjusted to the new targets. Michael returned fire, emptying his magazine toward the sniper's position. Not to hit, but to distract, to buy seconds. Maria reached the ladder first, helping Sophia start the climb before following. The child moved with surprising agility, fear lending her strength. The convoy's headlights now illuminated the base of the plateau. Men were disembarking, weapons visible. 30 seconds before they reached firing position, Maria had reached the helicopter door, hands pulling her inside. Sophia followed moments later. Michael ran for the ladder, bullets from below, striking around him as the first cartel gunman began firing. He grabbed the ladder's bottom rung just as the pilot began ascending, legs dangling as the helicopter rose. A searing pain tore through his thigh. Sniper round, finding its mark at last. His grip faltered, hands slipping on the rung. From above, small hands grabbed his wrist. Sophia, leaning dangerously from the doorway despite someone trying to pull her back, her face set with desperate determination. "Hold on!" she screamed over the now audible rotor wash. Her grip wouldn't save him, she was far too small, but the sight of her courage sent a surge of resolve through his fading consciousness. Michael forced his injured leg to cooperate, finding a foothold, pulling himself upward as bullets continued to track their ascent. Adult hands reached down, grabbing his shoulders, hauling him into the aircraft as it banked sharply east, accelerating into the night. Michael collapsed onto the helicopter's floor, blood pooling beneath his injured leg. Through greying vision, he saw Maria pressing a compress to his wound, saw Sophia's tearful face watching him with terrible intensity. "Did we make it?" he asked. Words slurring as shock took hold. "We made it," Sophia answered, small hand finding his. "You saved us." Darkness claimed him before he could tell her she was wrong. It was she who had saved him, in more ways than she could possibly understand. Michael awoke to the steady beep of medical monitors and the distinctive antiseptic smell of a hospital. Pain medication dulled his senses, but training took over as he assessed his surroundings before opening his eyes. Clean sheets, climate-controlled air, the soft murmur of professional voices nearby. Not a cartel black site then. He opened his eyes slowly, allowing them to adjust to fluorescent lighting. A private room, military-grade medical equipment, a guard visible through the doorway. "Welcome back." The voice belonged to Cooper, who sat in a chair beside the bed, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "You've been out for 36 hours. Michael tried to speak, found his throat too dry. Cooper offered water through a straw. "Maria, Sophia," Michael managed after several sips. "Safe, secure facility outside Tucson. U.S. Marshals, vetted personally by me." Cooper's face hardened. We found Thalik. Assistant Director Wilkins was on Quintero's payroll for 3 years. He's the one who compromised their witness protection arrangement. He's the one who gave up your location. Michael absorbed this information, fitting it into his understanding of events. Quintero, wind. The soldier's shorthand for disappeared. After he lost you at the gas station, he went underground. All his known properties are under surveillance, but… Cooper shrugged. Cartel leaders are good at becoming ghosts when necessary. He'll try again. Yes. Cooper didn't offer false reassurance. But we've moved Maria and Sophia into our program now. Not witness protection. New identities, new location, security protocols that Wilkins never had access to. Michael tried to sit up, wincing as pain shot through his bandaged thigh. Sniper round, Cooper explained. Missed the artery by 2 millimeters. You were lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it, but Michael didn't argue. I need to see them. Medical clearance first. Doctor says 3 days minimum. Not acceptable. Non-negotiable. Cooper's tone softened slightly. They're asking for you too. Especially the kid. But they're safe, Michael. I swear on my life. Michael studied his old friend's face, searching for any hint of deception. Finding none, he relaxed slightly against the pillows. Tell me everything, he said. Cooper filled in the gaps. After the helicopter extraction, they'd been flown to a secure military medical facility near Tucson. Maria's arm wound had been treated, minor damage already healing well. Sophia was physically unharmed but receiving trauma counseling. The motel shootout had made national news, described as a drug-related incident, with no mention of witnesses or special forces involvement. Local authorities had been kept out of the loop, jurisdiction claimed by federal agencies. We recovered Maria's evidence, Cooper continued. Financial records, transaction details, offshore account numbers. When combined with her testimony, it's enough to dismantle Quintero's entire operation and implicate 3 Mexican government officials and a U.S. Border Patrol section chief. Then Quintero is desperate, Michael observed. He's not just protecting his business now, he's fighting for survival, which makes him more dangerous, Cooper agreed, but also more visible. He's calling in favors, moving resources, exposing connections that were previously hidden. Michael processed this information, mind already calculating probabilities, scenarios, countermeasures. I want full security details on Maria and Sophia, 24/7, redundant systems, daily change, protocols. Already done. Cooper hesitated. There's something else you should know. The girl, Sophia, she asked if you could stay with them, wherever they go next. A small smile touched his lips. She says you promised to keep the bad men away. Something shifted in Michael's chest, an unfamiliar lightness, a purpose he hadn't felt in years. Did I promise that? According to a very determined 6-year-old, you did. Michael looked away, focusing on the windowless wall. I'm not exactly family material, Cooper. Maybe not. Cooper stood, stretching tired muscles. But you're the only person that little girl trusts right now. And from what I saw at the extraction point, her holding onto you while taking sniper fire, I'd say she's earned the right toast. After Cooper left, Michael lay awake, mind turning over possibilities he'd never previously considered. Confirmation raised his hackles more than any sighting would have. Professional infiltration used blind spots, patience, indirect approaches. His satellite phone rang. Cooper's direct line. We've got chatter, Cooper said without preamble. Quintero surfaced in Mexico City yesterday, met with Russian arms dealers, then disappeared again. You think he's making a move? Michael asked, eyes still scanning security feeds. We intercepted fragmented communications. Montana was mentioned. Michael's blood turned to ice. Maria and Sophia just left for school. I'm scrambling a team now. 20 minutes out. Get them back, Michael. The call dropped as Michael was already moving, calling Maria's cell. No answer. He tried again. Straight to voicemail. A digital map on his tablet showed the GPS tracker on Maria's vehicle, moving normally along the route to Sophia's school. Now 3 miles from the ranch, he grabbed keys to the backup vehicle, an armored Suburban, hidden in a secondary garage. As he rushed outside, a new security alert flashed. Breach at the southeast fence line. They were here. Michael had seconds to decide. Pursue Maria and Sophia or defend the property. The decision made itself. He would find them first, then circle back. The Suburban roared to life as he jammed the accelerator, tires throwing gravel as he sped down the driveway. Through the rearview mirror, he caught movement at the tree line. Dark figures advancing with tactical precision. The school route took a winding road through pine forest before reaching the small town of Clearwater. Michael pushed the Suburban to its limits, cutting the 5-minute drive to 3. Around each bend, he expected to see Maria's vehicle. Nothing. The GPS tracker showed them stopped a half-mile ahead, just before the road crossed Elk Creek. As he approached their location, Michael slowed, scanning for threats. Maria's SUV sat empty at a pull-off area, driver's door open. No signs of struggle, no bullet holes, nothing to indicate violence, just an abandoned vehicle and footprints leading into the woods. One set adult, one child-sized. Had they fled? From what? Michael followed the tracks, moving silently through dense pine. 50 yards in, he found Maria's cell phone, screen shattered. Deliberate destruction, not accidental dropping. Something was very wrong. The tracks continued another 100 yards before stopping at a small clearing. There, pressed into soft earth, their distinctive tread pattern of tactical boots, multiple sets surrounding the area where Maria and Sophia's tracks disappeared. An ambush. Professional, coordinated. Michael returned to the Suburban, retrieving his tactical gear. As he prepared to pursue, his satellite phone buzzed with a text. Message from an unknown number. Ever wonder why you chose room 217 at Desert Palm? Some decisions aren't our own. Call this number alone if you want them alive. His blood froze. Room 217. His specific request at the Desert Palm Motel, a detail known only to him, and Cooper. Cooper, who always seemed to be one step ahead. Cooper, who knew exactly where to find Michael after the motel shootout. Cooper, who set up their safe house in Montana. Michael's world collapsed into a single, crystalline understanding. The betrayal wasn't just from Assistant Director Wilkins. It went deeper. Fingers shaking with rage, he dialed the number. Hello, Mr. Vega. The voice was cultured, familiar. Quintero. If you've hurt them, they're unharmed. For now. Quintero's voice remained calm, almost pleasant. Unlike the men you killed at my estate in Colombia in 2014, the words hit Michael like physical blows. Colombia. An off-books operation that never appeared in any official record. A mission known only to his team and their direct handler, Cooper. You're beginning to understand, Quintero continued. Your friend Cooper has played a long game. He sold you out in Colombia. He sold you out in Arizona. And now he's sold the woman and child. What do you want? Michael's voice was barely human. The evidence Maria Delgado possessed was incomplete. The complete files would implicate individuals whose names would surprise you. People who pay me handsomely for discretion. Cooper. Among others, federal judges, 2 senators, a deputy director of the CIA. Quintero paused. The woman kept insurance. Complete records hidden where only she could access them. I need those records, and if I get them for you, then perhaps this cycle of violence ends. The woman and child disappear with new identities, real ones this time. Your turn to your retirement. Everyone lives. The satellite phone buzzed with an incoming message. Cooper. Team landed. Approaching your position. Hold tight. Michael made his decision. I'll get you what you want. But I need proof they're alive. Check your text messages. A video appeared. Maria and Sophia in a sparsely furnished room. A newspaper showed today's date. Sophia clutched her Wonder Woman lunchbox, eyes wide with fear. Maria's face showed controlled panic. 24 hours, Quintero said. I'll contact with instructions. The call ended as Michael heard helicopters approaching. Cooper's team, coming to maintain the illusion, to continue the betrayal. All this time, Michael had been a pawn in someone else's game. The safe house, the new identities, the protection, all designed to locate Maria's hidden evidence. The hunter had become the hunted, but they had made one critical mistake. They had taken the only people Michael Vega had left to love, and for that, there would be no mercy. Michael vanished into the forest as Cooper's helicopters descended. Training took over. Become invisible, gather intelligence, identify vulnerabilities. The hunter's mindset, cold and precise. He ditched his satellite phone after sending one final message to Cooper. Found them safe, heading back to ranch. Meet you there. A diversion to buy time. Michael moved on foot through dense woodland, using terrain for concealment. 2 miles east, he reached a small hunting cabin he'd identified during reconnaissance but never mentioned to Cooper. Inside, he retrieved the emergency pack he'd hidden there. Cash, weapons, burner phones, IDs unconnected to his current alias. Preparation born of perpetual distrust had become his salvation. He contacted 3 former teammates from his Special Forces unit, men who owed him their lives, men who operated outside official channels. No details shared, just coordinates and a single code word, Blackfish, their designation for betrayal by command. Night fell as Michael reached the outskirts of Clearwater, acquiring a nondescript sedan from a used car lot using cash and false ID. As he drove south, he forced emotional distance. compartmentalizing rage and fear into sealed chambers of his mind. Analysis, not emotion, would save Maria and Sophia. His burner phone rang. A private number. "Where are you?" Cooper's voice, tense with what sounded like concern. "Following a lead," Michael replied, voice neutral. "What lead?" "My men found nothing at the school pull-off." "That's why I'm the tracker and they're not." Michael injected casual confidence into his tone. "Signal's weak here. I'll call when I have something concrete." "Michael, wait." He ended the call, removing the battery. Cooper would trace the signal, but by then, Michael would be elsewhere. The deception bought hours at most. At a truck stop outside Butte, Michael met his first contact, Jackson, former demolitions expert, now running a private security firm. No questions asked, just a vehicle exchange and a package containing specialized equipment. "Like old times," Jackson said, eyes reflecting understanding of betrayal's bitter taste. "Let's hope not," Michael replied. Old times had left villages, burning and bodies uncounted. Next came the hard part, accessing Maria's hidden insurance. During their months together, she'd shared fragments of information, building trust gradually. One night, after Sophia was asleep, she'd revealed her contingency. Evidence copies hidden in a safe deposit box in Phoenix, accessible only with specific biometric verification. The bank had security protocols, redundancies, armed guards. A frontal approach was impossible. Michael needed leverage. He needed Cooper. He made his next call from a secure line at Jackson's office, using encryption that would mask his location. "Michael, where the hell are you?" Cooper demanded. "Finding Maria and Sophia," he replied coolly. "We're working on it. I've got teams." "Call them off," Michael interrupted. "They won't find anything." Silence stretched between them. Then, "What do you know that I don't?" "I know who has them," Michael said. "I know what they want, and I know who's been feeding. Quintero information since Colombia." The line went dead silent. When Cooper spoke again, his voice had changed, hardened. "You don't understand the complexities. Actually, I do. Money, power, compromise." Michael kept his voice devoid of emotion. "What I don't understand is why you involved the child." "That wasn't me," Cooper insisted. "Quintero went off script. The plan was surveillance only, tracking you to the evidence. And now," Cooper sighed, the sound of a man calculating odds. "What do you want?" "Access to Phoenix United Bank. Tomorrow morning. Maria's safety deposit box." "That's impossible. That facility has—" "You're going to make it possible," Michael cut him off. "Because if Maria and Sophia aren't released unharmed within 24 hours of me delivering those files, I'm releasing everything I know about Operation Kingmaker to the Washington Post." Cooper's sharp intake of breath confirmed Michael's suspicion. Kingmaker, the Columbia operation's classified designation, a mission that had eliminated a drug lord to install a more cooperative replacement. A replacement named Quintero. "You're bluffing," Cooper said finally. "You'll be implicated too." "Do I sound like I care about that anymore?" Silence then. "I'll call you back in 1 hour." Michael ended the call, already moving to his next position. Cooper would try to trace him, would attempt countermeasures. The game had evolved. A text arrived on his burner phone. An image of Sophia sleeping on a cot, Maria watching over her. A time-stamped proof of life, a reminder of the stakes. Michael's remaining team members reported in. Torres positioned in Phoenix, monitoring the bank. Rivera tracking Cooper's movements from Washington. The net tightening from both sides. Cooper called back within the hour, as promised. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., you'll receive temporary credentials and biometric bypass. 20 minutes inside, no more. And Maria and Sophia, released after verification of the files." Michael knew better than to trust this promise, but said, "I'll be there." The next phase was already in motion. Positioning assets, creating redundancies, establishing dead man switches. If Michael failed, evidence of the Columbia operation would still reach the public. If he succeeded, but was betrayed again, Quintero and Cooper would find no sanctuary. The night passed in methodical preparation. When dawn broke, Michael was transformed. Clean-shaven, hair precisely cut, wearing the tailored suit and confident posture of a federal agent. Identity and documentation provided by Torres, flawless, down to the classified security clearance. He entered Phoenix like a ghost returning to familiar haunts, the desert city shimmering under morning sun. The bank stood in the financial district, its modern architecture housing old secrets and older money. Torres confirmed from surveillance. Cooper arrived 10 minutes ago. 3 plainclothes security inside. 2 vehicles monitoring exterior. Facial recognition jammers online, Rivera added from his position. Satellite coverage active. You're invisible to standard tracking. Michael checked his watch. 8:55 a.m. Going in, he confirmed, adjusting his tie. Contingency's active if I don't emerge in 30 minutes. He walked through the bank's ornate entrance. A predator in borrowed plumage, moving with purpose toward the fate of those who had become his unexpected family. The bank manager met Michael in the marble-floored lobby, Cooper at his side. Both men wore the bland expressions of professionals conducting routine business, though the tension between them crackled like static electricity. "Mr. Reed," the manager said, using Michael's cover identity. "Your colleague explained the situation. We've prepared the secure room," Michael nodded, eyes meeting Cooper's. The message passed between them without words. Temporary alliance, mutual distrust, shared awareness of unseen watchers. They descended to the vault level, passing through layers of security, each door, each checkpoint, bringing them closer to Maria's insurance policy. The manager used his credentials at the final barrier, gesturing them into a private viewing room. 20 minutes, Cooper reminded him as the door closed, leaving them alone among steel walls. Michael moved directly to the safe deposit box, using the key Torres had manufactured based on Maria's descriptions. Inside lay a single USB drive, unremarkable except for what it contained. "That's it?" Cooper asked, sounding disappointed. "That's it," Michael confirmed, pocketing the drive. "Now we ensure Maria and Sophia's release." Cooper pulled out his phone, dialing a number. "We have it." A pause. "Yes. Full verification pending." Another pause. "Understood." He ended the call, facing Michael. "They'll be released at a shopping center in Tucson within the hour. My people will ensure their safety." "Your people," Michael repeated, voice flat. "Like they ensured their safety in Montana." Cooper's expression hardened. "This situation is more complicated than you understand, Michael. There are layers." "I understand perfectly," Michael interrupted. "You sold your soul years ago. Colombia was just the first payment." "We did what was necessary," Cooper insisted. "Quintero was controllable. His predecessor wasn't. Sometimes maintaining order requires compromise. And those compromises led you here, betraying your country, endangering a child." Michael stepped closer. "Tell me, was it worth it?" Cooper's hand moved toward his concealed weapon, a subtle shift of weight that Michael recognized instantly. The older man's eyes calculated, measuring distances and angles. "Don't," Michael warned quietly. "You won't make it out of here with that." "Drive," Cooper said. "Too many people have too much to lose." "I already have." Michael allowed himself a cold smile. "The moment I entered this room, Torres began broadcasting a dead drop location to Quintero's people. They believe I'm delivering the drive there in exchange for Maria and Sophia." Cooper's eyes widened slightly. "You're lying. The actual drive will reach the Washington Post by courier within the hour if I don't cancel the delivery." Michael checked his watch. "Which I won't do until I personally confirm Maria and Sophia are safe." The older man's face transformed, decades of practice falling away to reveal the cornered predator beneath. "You've killed us all." "No," Michael corrected. "Your choices did that." Cooper lunged then, desperation driving him forward. But Michael had anticipated this moment, had prepared for it, with the cold precision that had kept him alive through 2 decades of war. The countermove was efficient, economical. Cooper's momentum became his downfall, his weight carrying him onto Michael's knife. Their eyes met one final time, student and mentor, brothers in arms, now enemies divided by an unbridgeable moral chasm. "I'm sorry," Michael said, meaning it despite everything. Cooper's final words came as a whispered warning. He'll never stop. There are others, higher up, who can't be exposed. Then he was gone, the light fading from eyes that had seen too much, compromised too often. Michael arranged the body to buy time, making it appear Cooper was simply sitting, resting. Then he walked out, nodding to the manager as he passed, the drive secure in his pocket, the countdown to either salvation or destruction already begun. Michael left the bank and disappeared into the crowded streets of Phoenix, becoming another anonymous face in the urban landscape. Torres confirmed from his surveillance position. Cooper's team is mobilizing. They don't know he's dead yet, but they're suspicious. Time was running critically short. The USB drive felt impossibly heavy in Michael's pocket, containing evidence that could topple politicians, judges, federal officials, names and transactions, offshore accounts and covert operations, enough to dismantle not just Quintero's operation, but an entire shadow network of corruption. As promised, a proof-of-life video arrived on his phone. Maria and Sophia in a vehicle. Today's newspaper visible. Their location transmitted separately. A shopping mall in Tucson, 90 minutes away. Michael commandeered a new vehicle from Torres's pre-positioned assets, driving with calculated speed, neither too fast nor too slow. Nothing to attract attention. Rivera's confirmed movement at the Tucson location, Torres reported through encrypted comms. 8 hostiles, 2 vehicles. Maria and Sofia are in the secondary vehicle. Surveillance? 3 snipers on surrounding buildings. Standard counter-surveillance preventions. Michael processed this information with cold precision. Initiate Protocol Sigma. Within 15 minutes, local news stations began reporting a massive chemical spill on the highway leading to Tucson. Emergency services diverted traffic. Power outages affected 3 city blocks surrounding the shopping center. Chaos, confusion, opportunity. Michael switched vehicles at a predetermined location, transferred to a tactical outfit, checking weapons and equipment with practiced efficiency. His team had created the conditions. Now came the execution. Maria sat in the back of the SUV, armed tight around Sofia, watching the armed men grow increasingly agitated as reports of the chemical spill came through their radios. Power flickered in the shopping center parking garage, emergency generators humming to life. "Mommy, is Michael coming?" Sofia whispered, clutching her Wonder Woman lunchbox. The one thing Quintero's men had allowed her to keep. "Yes," Maria answered with certainty she didn't fully feel. "He's coming." Outside, sirens wailed as emergency vehicles responded to the fabricated crisis. The cartel lieutenant in charge barked orders into his radio, receiving static in response. Their communications were being jammed. In the sudden darkness of the parking garage, the armed men grew visibly nervous, weapons raised, scanning for threats. The power outage had disabled security cameras, elevator systems, and most lighting. "We're leaving," the lieutenant decided, gesturing toward the stairs. "Bring the woman and child." As they exited the vehicle, Sofia stumbled deliberately, dropping her lunchbox. When it hit the concrete floor, it didn't make the sound plastic should make. The lieutenant noticed too late. The modified lunchbox, secretly altered during their captivity by Sofia under Michael's distant guidance, detonated with a blinding flash and deafening concussion, not explosive, but disorienting. Through the chaos came Michael, moving like a shadow among shadows, a vengeful spectre methodically neutralizing each threat with lethal precision. 3 men fell before they registered his presence. The lieutenant raised his weapon toward Maria and Sofia, a final, desperate attempt at leverage. He never completed the motion. Michael emerged from smoke, eyes locked with Maria's over the bodies of fallen enemies. No words needed to pass between them. He had come, as they knew he would. "Is it over?" Sofia asked, running to embrace him. "Almost," Michael answered, leading them toward an emergency exit where Torres waited with transportation. Only Quintero remained, and Michael was coming for him. 24 hours after the rescue, Michael stood on the balcony of a luxury penthouse in Puerto Peñasco, Mexico, watching waves crash against pristine beaches below. The irony wasn't lost on him. Seeking Quintero in his homeland, using the cartel leader's own property as a staging ground. Inside, Maria and Sofia slept under Torres's watchful eye, exhaustion finally claiming them after their ordeal. Rivera maintained surveillance from the building across the street, monitoring approach routes, while Jackson handled communications, intercepting cartel transmissions. The USB drive data had yielded Quintero's precise location, a fortified compound 10 miles inland, disguised as a private resort. Satellite imagery showed substantial security. Armed guards, surveillance systems, reinforced entry points, a small army protecting one man. Michael studied the compound layout, identifying vulnerabilities, planning entry and exit routes. The operation would be solo. His team would extract Maria and Sofia to safety while he handled Quintero personally. This wasn't just about protection anymore. It was about ending a threat permanently. "You should be resting," Maria said softly, appearing beside him. "Old habits," Michael replied. "How's Sofia?" "Finally sleeping." She insisted on keeping the lunchbox. Maria's smile held both pride and sadness. "My daughter, the junior operative." "She's remarkable," Michael agreed. "Like her mother." Maria studied his face in the moonlight. "You're really going after him." "Not a question. An understanding. As long as he's alive, you'll never be safe." Michael kept his voice neutral, factual. He's seen Sofia's face, knows her name. He'll always be a threat. "And after?" Maria asked quietly. "If you survive this?" The question caught Michael off guard. He'd been so focused on the mission, on elimination of the threat, that he hadn't allowed himself to consider what came after. For 7 years since Elena's death, after hadn't existed, just an endless succession of missions and movements. "I don't know," he admitted finally. What do you want? Maria looked away, watching the ocean. Sophia asks if we can live near a beach. Somewhere she can have friends. Go to school without looking over her shoulder. She hesitated. She wants you. There. And you? Michael asked, something fragile and unfamiliar settling in his chest. I want... Maria met his eyes directly. I want a future that isn't defined by running. And I think... I want you in that future. If you want to be. The words hung between them. Possibility crystallizing into something tangible, terrifying in its simplicity. A life after war, a purpose beyond survival. First I end this, Michael said. Then, we'll see about beaches. Dawn broke over the compound as Michael approached from the western perimeter, where terrain provided natural concealment. He moved like a ghost through security patrols, bypassing electronic surveillance with equipment that cost more than most. Houses. The intelligence was accurate. 12 perimeter guards rotating in pairs. Interior security estimated at 15 additional personnel. Quintero's private quarters in the central structure, top floor, eastern exposure. Michael neutralized the first patrol silently, continuing his methodical advance. This wasn't rage driving, him forward, but cold calculation. Each movement precise, each decision weighed against alternatives. The fence yielded to specialized cutting tools, the alarm system to digital countermeasures, the guards to techniques perfected in theaters of war whose names never appeared in history books. He reached the main building unopposed, scaling the exterior using modified climbing gear, a shadow moving vertically against shadowed walls. Quintero's balcony awaited. Lights off. Sliding door partially open to admit sea breezes. Too easy. Michael paused, instinct screaming warning. Quintero was a survivor, a predator in his own right. This apparent vulnerability was calculated, deliberate, a trap. He changed approach, moving laterally to a different entry point. A bathroom window, small but sufficient. The security system indicated it was alarmed, but the wiring showed recent tampering. Someone had modified it, creating the appearance of security while leaving an access point. Inside, Michael moved through darkness, thermal imaging revealing no immediate threats. The suite was lavish. European furniture, priceless art, the trappings of wealth built on blood and corruption. At the center of the main room, a single chair faced the balcony. In it sat Quintero, seemingly alone, a snifter of brandy in one manicured hand. Right on time, Mr. Vega, he said without turning. I've been expecting you. Michael kept his weapon trained on Quintero's head, scanning for hidden threats. You're alone, completely. I sent my security detail away an hour ago. Quintero sipped his brandy. This is between us now. Where are the others? Cooper's associates. Scattered. Frightened. Your information release was comprehensive. Quintero finally turned, facing Michael with remarkable composure for a man, staring at his executioner. Senators resigning, judges recusing themselves. Your country's political establishment is experiencing quite the house cleaning. Michael moved closer, weapon unwavering. You'll never stop hunting them. On the contrary. Quintero set down his glass. The woman and child are no longer my concern. That operation ended with Cooper's death. My surviving associates have more pressing problems than pursuing witnesses to a failed operation. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to verify it. The files your associates extracted included my personal communications. Read them. You'll find I advocated for minimal involvement with the woman and child from the beginning. Dead witnesses create martyrs. Living witnesses can be discredited. Michael's finger tightened fractionally on the trigger. Convenient explanation when facing execution, but true nonetheless. Quintero shrugged elegantly. Kill me if you must. It changes nothing about your situation. The woman and child remain targets. Not from me, but from those whose names never appeared in those files. People beyond your reach. Everyone is within reach, Michael countered. Perhaps. Quintero leaned forward slightly. But consider this. Dead, I become a martyr to my organization. Alive, weakened by your information leak, I become a businessman seeking legitimacy. Self-interest ensures I maintain distance from American witnesses who no longer threaten me. The logic was cold, practical, compelling. The calculation of a survivor adaptable enough to thrive in changing circumstances. Why should I trust you'll keep this bargain? Michael demanded. Because I respect professionals, Mr. Vega. We are alike, you and I, men who understand power and its application. Quintero spread his hands. I offer mutually assured destruction. You hold evidence of my operations. I know your face, your methods, your weaknesses. Stalemate serves us both. Michael's training screamed for clean resolution, for threat elimination. But another voice spoke louder. Sophia asking about beaches. Maria speaking of futures without running. A different kind of mission. If I ever hear you've made any move, any inquiry about them, Michael began. You'll find me and complete tonight's mission, Quintero finished for him. I understand completely. For long moments, Michael held his position, weapon trained, decision balanced on a knife's edge. Then he slowly lowered the gun. Wise choice, Quintero said softly. Not wise, Michael corrected. Provisional. He backed toward the door, never taking his eyes from the cartel leader. Remember my promise. I never forget a worthy adversary, Quintero assured him, raising his brandy in a mock toast. Safe travels, Mr. Vega. Michael disappeared into the night, leaving alive the devil he knew rather than creating vacuums for devils he didn't. The true victory wasn't in Quintero's death, but in the lives he was choosing to protect. And perhaps, finally, to join. 6 months later, Michael stood on the deck of a modest beachfront home in Costa Rica, watching Sophia build elaborate sandcastles. At the water's edge, the morning sun cast long shadows across pristine white sand. Fishing boats dotted the horizon, and for once, Michael wasn't scanning for threats, but simply appreciating the view. The transition to civilian life, real civilian life, not the half-existence he'd maintained since Elena's death, had been neither simple nor immediate. Old habits died reluctantly. He still woke before dawn, still checked entry points, still maintained awareness of every person who passed their home. But gradually, hypervigilance had eased into reasonable caution. Inside, Maria prepared breakfast, humming softly to herself. Through the open windows, Michael caught fragments of melody, a Spanish lullaby he'd come to recognize over their months together. Her voice, once tight with constant fear, now carried the relaxed cadence of someone who felt secure in her surroundings. After leaving Quintero alive that night in Mexico, Michael had maintained surveillance for weeks, verifying the cartel leader was keeping his end of their arrangement. Intelligence sources confirmed what Quintero had claimed. The evidence release had created precisely the political earthquake predicted. Those implicated were indeed too consumed with their own survival to pursue vendettas. Cooper's death had been ruled a heart attack, the official narrative crafted to protect institutions rather than individuals. Michael hadn't contested this fiction. Truth would have endangered pension benefits for Cooper's widow, a woman whose only crime had been loving a man who lost his moral compass. Torres, Rivera, and Jackson had returned to their separate lives, but monthly check-ins maintained the network, just in case. Some precautions weren't paranoia, but prudence. "Daddy, look!" Sophia called from the beach, pointing proudly at her latest creation, a sand fortress complete with moat and shell decorations. The title still caught Michael off guard sometimes. They hadn't planned it, hadn't discussed it. Sophia had simply started using it one morning about 2 months after their arrival, as naturally as if it had always been his designation. Neither Michael nor Maria had corrected her. Their new identities were rock solid, crafted by specialists outside government channels, funded by accounts Michael had maintained for contingencies. Michael Reyes, security consultant. Maria Reyes, translator and language tutor. Sophia Reyes, second-grade student at the international school in town, already fluent in English and Spanish, working on Portuguese. A family constructed from trauma's aftermath, genuine in ways that surprised them all. "That's impressive engineering," Michael called back, making his way down the wooden steps to the beach. "Very defensible position." Sophia beamed at the praise. "I put guards here and here," she explained, placing small sticks at strategic points. "And a secret escape tunnel under the throne room." The tactical thinking might have concerned him once. Now he recognized it as processing, her mind integrating past experiences into a framework she could manage. The child psychologist they consulted monthly had assured them this was healthy adaptation, not concerning fixation. "Smart planning," Michael agreed, crouching beside her creation. "Though in my experience, multiple escape routes are better than one." Sophia considered this seriously, then nodded. "I'll add another one here," she decided, beginning to excavate a new tunnel with focused determination. Maria appeared at the top of the steps, watching them with a mixture of amusement and something deeper, more complex. "Breakfast is ready, you two. Sophia, wash your hands first." As Sophia raced up toward the house, Maria's eyes met Michael's. "Teaching military tactics to our 6-year-old again." She started it. Michael defended himself with a smile, climbing the steps to join her. Our 6-year-old, the casual pronoun, contained multitudes, acceptance, belonging, commitment. They hadn't formalized their relationship in any legal sense. Neither felt the need for paperwork to validate what had formed, naturally through shared purpose and survival. After breakfast, Michael drove Sophia to school in their modest SUV, security-tinted windows the only concession to old instincts. That high international school had been chosen carefully, its security protocols assessed and supplemented where Michael deemed necessary. The staff knew them as a normal expatriate family, though the principal had been discreetly informed that Sophia's background included trauma requiring special sensitivity. "Will you pick me up today?" Sophia asked as they approached the school gate. "No, Mama will. I have a meeting in the city," Michael reminded her. The meeting was with a potential client, a technology firm seeking security consultation for their Central American operations. Legitimate work using legitimate skills. The transition from shadow warrior to security professional had been surprisingly seamless. His expertise valued in the private sector, his recommendations taken seriously. "Don't forget it's presentation day," Sophia said solemnly. "I'm talking about marine conservation." "I haven't forgotten," Michael assured her. "We'll practice your speech again tomorrow morning." He watched her join a group of friends, marveling at children's resilience. Sophia still had nightmares occasionally, still spoke with the therapist about her father's murder and their time running. But those experiences had become parts of her story, rather than its defining elements. Returning home, Michael found Maria on the deck with her laptop, translating documents for an international climate change organization. "All good?" she asked as he sat beside her. "All good," he confirmed, the simple exchange part of their daily rhythm. They worked in comfortable silence, Maria translating, Michael reviewing security assessments for his client meeting. Occasionally their eyes would meet over laptop screens, small smiles acknowledging the ordinariness that once seemed unattainable. In the afternoon, Michael conducted his weekly security check. Cameras, alarms, response protocols. Old habits, repurposed for new priorities. The property remained secure, the monitoring systems functioning optimally. No unusual activity, no suspicious patterns. Later, as sunset painted the sky in spectacular oranges and pinks, they walked along the beach. As a family, Sophia running ahead to collect shells, Michael and Maria following hand in hand. "Any regrets?" Maria asked quietly, the question they both revisited occasionally. Checking the foundations of the life they'd built, Michael considered honestly before answering. "About Quintero, sometimes, the tactical part of me still thinks elimination would have been cleaner. And the non-tactical part," he squeezed her hand gently, "knows this outcome is better, for all of us." Maria nodded, understanding the complexity behind his simple answer. "I used to dream about justice for Daniel, testimony, trials, prison sentences." She watched Sophia chasing waves at the water's edge. "Now I dream about her future instead." "We can have both," Michael said. "Justice and future. Different kinds of justice than we planned, maybe." "Justice comes in many forms," Maria agreed. "The corruption your evidence exposed, the operations dismantled, the lives saved by what we did." As darkness settled over the ocean, they called Sophia back from her shell hunting. The night air carried a slight chill, prompting Michael to wrap an arm around Maria's shoulders as they headed toward home. Their home, lights glowing warmly against the gathering night. Not perfect safety, not absolute certainty, but something genuine, something worth protecting, something worth living for beyond mere survival. For a man who had spent decades in war's shadow, it was more than enough. 1 year to the day after the Motel ambush, Michael sat alone on the beach as dawn broke. Over the horizon, this had become his ritual, an hour of solitude before the household stirred, a time to remember and reflect. The anniversary held significance he hadn't shared with Maria. Today marked not only the night when Cartel sicarios had stormed his motel room, but also the day Elena had died 8 years earlier. The coincidence seemed meaningful. Somehow, 2 pivotal moments exactly 7 years apart, both redefining his understanding of purpose and loss. He reached into his pocket, retrieving 2 objects he carried always: Eleanor's wedding ring on a chain, and Sophia's crayon drawing from Montana, now laminated and worn at the edges. Past and present, grief and hope, held in the same hand. From the house came the familiar sounds of morning. Sophia's excited chatter, Maria's gentle responses, coffee brewing, life continuing. These ordinary moments had become extraordinary to a man who had lived so long in war's shadows. His secure phone vibrated, a rare occurrence these days. Only 3 people had this number. The text message contained no words, just a news link. Michael opened it cautiously, security protocols running automatically as the page loaded. Headlines announced the death of Javier Quintero, killed in a gunfight between rival cartel factions in Sinaloa. The article cited anonymous sources claiming the power vacuum created by his reduced influence had finally reached critical mass, triggering an internal coup. Michael stared at the screen, emotions complex and contradictory. The threat Quintero posed was permanently neutralized, logical satisfaction. Yet there was no triumph, no vindication. Just the somber recognition of another violent end in a world that manufactured them endlessly. He deleted the message, powered down the phone, and returned it to his pocket. The information changed nothing about their daily lives, their security protocols, their future plans. One threat eliminated meant others would eventually rise to replace it. The nature of the world he understood too well. What mattered now was the life they'd built, the peace they'd carved from chaos. When he returned to the house, Maria was in the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, watching him with knowing eyes. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes," he said, and meant it despite the news. Just needed some air. She studied him with a perceptiveness that had first drawn him to her, beyond physical attraction, beyond circumstance. That keen intelligence that saw through facades. "It's been a year today," she said simply. He nodded, not surprised she remembered. Maria missed nothing important. "I was thinking," she continued, setting down her mug, "we should do something special tonight. Mark the occasion. Not to dwell on what happened, but to acknowledge how far we've come." Michael considered this. Anniversaries had always been difficult, reminders of loss rather than celebrations. But perhaps this one could be different. "I'd like that," he agreed. Sophia appeared in the doorway, still in pajamas decorated with marine animals, hair tousled from sleep. "Can we have pancakes?" she asked, the universal request of children everywhere on special occasions. "Pancakes it is." Maria smiled, gathering ingredients. "Michael, there's another school form on the counter requiring a parent's signature." He picked up the field trip permission slip. The words, "Parent on Guardian's signature," highlighted in yellow. These small, bureaucratic acknowledgements of his role in Sophia's life still affected him profoundly. As he signed Michael Reyes with practiced ease, Sophia leaned against him, watching the pen move across paper. "Will you teach me how to swim in the deep water today?" "You promised yesterday, after school," he confirmed, ruffling her hair gently. The morning proceeded with familiar rhythms. Breakfast, school preparation, the drive into town. Michael dropped Sophia at school, then Maria at the language center, where she taught 3 days a week, before continuing to his office in a modern building overlooking the harbor. His security consulting business had grown steadily, reputation building, through word of mouth among expatriate businesses and wealthy individuals seeking protection in an uncertain world. Today's schedule included a vulnerability assessment for a technology company's regional headquarters and a training session for their executive protection team. Professional, legitimate work that still utilized his specialized skills. A balance he'd never imagined possible. Between meetings, Michael received a secure call from Rivera, confirming what the news article had reported about Quintero. "Thought you should know it's genuine," his former teammate said. "Not staged, not misdirection. Multiple confirmations. Appreciated." Michael responded simply. "How's the family?" Rivera asked, the question still somewhat strange to Michael's ears. "Good. Really good. Glad to hear it, brother." A pause, then, "You know we're still here if you need anything." Any time. The loyalty of his team remained undiminished by distance or time, a connection forged in combat that civilian life couldn't replicate or sever. Another form of family, different, but equally binding. That evening, they gathered on the beach for a small bonfire. Sophia roasted marshmallows under careful supervision, face glowing with firelight and simple joy. Maria had prepared a special dinner. Music played softly from portable speakers, and for a while they were just a family enjoying an evening together. After Sophia went to bed, exhausted from swimming and storytelling, Michael and Maria remained by the dying fire, stars emerging in brilliant clarity above them. "I got the news about Quintero," Maria said quietly. "Torres called me." Michael wasn't surprised. His team had always respected Maria's right to information that affected her safety. "Does it change anything for you?" he asked. "Knowing he's gone?" Maria considered the question seriously, firelight playing across her thoughtful features. "It changes the calculation of risk," she acknowledged, "but not how I feel about our life here." She reached for his hand in the darkness. "What about you?" "I thought it would mean more than it does," Michael admitted. "In the past, eliminating a threat would have felt like mission completion. And now? Now I understand there's no completion, just continuation. Different phases, different priorities." Maria nodded, understanding implicit in her silence. After a moment she said, Sophia asked me something interesting today. She wanted to know if you were sad that you weren't her real dad. Michael tensed slightly. What did you tell her? I told her, sometimes families are made in different ways, that some fathers are born to the role, and some choose it. Maria's eyes met his in the firelight, that sometimes the ones who choose it are the most real of all, because they choose it every day. Something tightened in Michael's chest. Emotion, still unfamiliar in its intensity after years of carefully maintained distance from feeling. She seemed satisfied with that answer, Maria continued. Then she asked if you could adopt her officially someday. The word hung between them. Adopt. Official. Permanent. A step beyond their careful arrangement of functional family without formal commitments. What do you think about that? Michael asked carefully. I think, Maria said slowly, that we've spent a year building something real, something worth acknowledging. She reached into her pocket, withdrawing a small box. This isn't a traditional proposal, she explained, opening it to reveal 2 simple platinum bands. Just a suggestion that maybe it's time to make official what we've already become. Michael stared at the rings, decades of trained emotional distance, collapsing in an instant of perfect clarity.